Okay. Well, we just have one of those papers also. One more? Okay, yeah, there's one.
Stop. Yeah, so you press here. Make sure the setting is
Okay. So we're going to learn a little bit about the Urim veTumin, which is a big sugya, a big mysterious sugya, and we'll try to understand what this is. What is Urim veTumin? How does it work? Does it try to have something connected to the Urim veTumin? Etc. What is Urim veTumin? So we all know what the simple thing Urim veTumin is, right? Some type of Chayshem lights up. You have the question. So the Gemara says, the Gemara on the Sota says that we should pass on a word. So pasku, we should make some Navim Rishonim and pasku Urim veTumin. The Urim veTumin stopped working when the Navim, the first Navim passed away. The first Navim means vice, right? Chagas Chaim Malach Sheni. So the time you turn to the second Beis Hamikdash, there is no Urim veTumin anymore. This is what the Parshas what it says. Okay, so now what's the difference between the Urim veTumim, let's say, for example, and Nevuah? So the basic difference in Nevuah and Urim veTumim, so there's different madrigas. There's Nevuah, Urim veTumim, Ruach HaKodesh, Baskal. If you look in Shiur Ruach HaKodesh Tari, he describes all the different levels of madrigas, of different heightened levels, from the highest level, which is Nevuah. Obviously, the highest level of Nevuah is the Nevuah Aspaklari Habeira, which the Gemara says is talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Direct light, you see through the glass. Aspaklari She'ein Mirror, which is already a muddied glass, or a mirror, which is already lower level of Nevuah. Then you have, under that, is you have the level of Urim veTumim. What's the basic difference in Urim veTumim and Nevuah and prophecy? Is that the basic difference is that Nevuah is Milmaila Lamata, from above to below. Which means that the Navi is a person that he has to be, okay, he has to be a Gibor, Oisher, Chacham, all these things that the Gemara says he has to be. These are the qualities of a Navi. He has to be a person that sits and readies himself, he's Machavan himself, he readies himself for this, to receive Nevuah, right? And that's why in Nevuah Shoira, that Lebetechatzvus, has to be Dafke, Simcha, right? So all these things, he has to be in a joyful state. He has to be like that they play music for him to get into this seduced state. But ultimately, he just gets into a position where either there's going to be nevuah or there's not going to be nevuah. So Efsheh Tishla of nevuah, Efsheh Shalai Tishla. That's what the Rama writes, right? Because it's not an inevitability. You prepare yourself to get to the state of nevuah, right? And then nevuah comes from above to below. And that's generally all forms of nevuah. All forms of nevuah, from the highest level of nevuah to the lowest level of nevuah, they're all forms of a movement that's coming from above to below. However, in contrast to the idea of the Urim veTumim, what is really the Urim veTumim? Urim veTumim means that there's a question that's asked, right? So there's a person that's shoyel, person that asks, someone asked a question, and the question can only be asked if it's something that's needed for the whole tzibur, for the collective. This shoyel asks quietly to himself, but facing the Kohen Gadol. This is the way the Rambam will write it. Facing the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol is wearing the Choshen. He's facing Pnei Ashchina, which means that he's facing the Orim. Okay, so he's standing in back of him. And the Rambam says, he says quietly, he asks this question to the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol is looking towards the Pnei Ashchina. Rashi says he's looking the other direction, but that we're looking towards the Aram. And he asked the question, and then Yalla, Allah Yalla, like should we do battle, we should not do battle, and then he receives the answer, however we receive the answer. So it's really a question that's facilitated by man. The Navi doesn't do that. The Navi doesn't say, should I do this or not do that? And then I ask. If it becomes a Nevuah, it comes. And therefore, Nevuah is more about the above, channeling itself through the below. Where here it's about the below channeling itself, moving itself higher. Now, also Nevuah, to be clear, is also about the Navi through using his seichel, through using his intelligence. He has to be someone that contemplates, and the Rambam gives a whole description, is also his seichel connects itself with the Ishim, which is the lowest level of angels, which is also a type of movement above, and therefore, like the Gemara can say, that when they wanted to know what to do something, so Klal Yisrael went to Chul Anaviyah, right? Remember the Gemara Megillah? The Gemara says, why didn't you go to Chul Anaviyah? Why didn't you go to Yirmiyahu Navi? So the Gemara says, because Nashim Rachmani is like. Nashim Rachmani is because women are compassionate. But if it's Nevuah, what's the difference with compassion? You have to find out what the word of Hashem is. Hashem doesn't say to do this, not do this. You're going to lose the war. You're not going to lose the war. What does it help? Compassion. So is the Charaya, is the proof is. So the Marsha actually answers because she's a compassionate. She'll daven. She'll daven. She'll say, even though something terrible is supposed to happen, she'll daven that it shouldn't happen. But Avodas HaKodesh, Meir Ben Gabbai writes, no, that it's something else, it's different, because Nevuah means something that's coming through the Navi, but the tonality of how you say those words is based on the Navi himself. There's going to be a destruction, it can be said one way, or there's going to be a destruction. Now the words are going to be the exact same thing, but it could be a question mark, or it could be an actuality. So he says no, that the Navi has the choice. That's the Rahmani is saying, has a choice of what the Navi is receiving to channel it in a particular direction. Not that Chas v'Shalom, this is going to happen. No, is this really going to happen? But you can say the same words. Okay, so the Navi also has some type of channeling through the consciousness, the mindset, the prism of the seichel of the Navi. But the Urim veTumim is certainly that, because Urim veTumim is actually activated through the person, through the person that has the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the Kohen Gadol. Okay, so it's Pascha Nevuah and Bittul Urim veTumim, and when there was no longer any Nevi'im, but somehow there's still the Urim veTumim itself is also connected to some form of Nevuah. Okay, now what is actually the Urim veTumim themselves? What are they? What's Urim veTumim? What are these objects? Are they objects? There's Urim and veTumim. What are these objects? So in the Gemara itself, there's only one little Gemara in Yuma. The Gemara talks about a little bit of Urim veTumim. It says that Urim is Malashim be'ir mes Yisrael. Urim comes from the word illuminates, which means that it becomes illuminated. The question becomes illuminated. And Tumim is shemashlim as the Vrayim. It means it completes its words, which means what the Gemara means is that it's not a nevuah shechizeres. It's an impossibility to change. If it says this is what's going to be, then this has to be, which is a little bit of contrast to nevuah, because nevuah only nevuah l'toiv doesn't change, right? That's one of the criterias that the Rambam says. That how do you know if the Navi says something that's true? Because they have to test the Navi, right? The Navi says you should do this. How do you know if the Navi is a true Navi? One of the ways to test the Navi is the Navi say this is what's going to happen, and if it happens, you know the person's a Navi. But what if he says something bad is going to happen and it doesn't happen? The Rambam says that's not proof, because something that's bad could be maybe the tshuva, and things change, therefore it doesn't happen. But if something's l'toiv, it has to happen. But here by Urim veTumim, it's mashlim as the Reim, it has to happen. It's inevitability. Okay, that's the Urim veTumim. That's one thing. The Yerushalmi says a little bit different, that Urim is Shema'ir Mes Yisrael, which is also that you have a light. It illuminates the Klal Yisrael, what it has to do. And Tumim is when does it illuminate Klal Yisrael? When they are Tumim, when they are Tamim. When they are Shalom, when they are complete, that's when it works. Okay, so that's the Urim veTumim. So Chazal actually don't really tell us what they are. It just says that it's symbolic of some type of illumination and some type of completion. What actually are they? So that's why there's a machlekes, a big machlekes between the Rishonim. What exactly is the Urim veTumim? So Rashi, if you learn Rashi, you'll see that Rashi. What's Rashi's opinion? What are the Urim veTumim? Rashi's opinion is that it's a Shem HaMefarish. That the Choshen is the breastplate itself. It was folded over inside, and they placed a piece of cloth, like a little written cloth, that had the name of Hashem. Which name of Hashem? Rashi has Shem HaMefarish, so we can assume that's Yud Kei Vav Kei. And they placed it into the Urim into the Choshen. So the Urim veTumim means
addition to all mitzvah.
Yeah, different all mitzvah, separate thing. You'll see Stum Takaveri connects these two. That in addition to it, they put this little cloth of the name of Hashem in the Choshen, and that's how somehow it was activated through this thing. Comes along the Even Ezra, And Ibn Ezra says, no, it's impossible that this is what it means. And if Rashi would have saw the tshuva of Reb Hai Gaon, he wouldn't have written this, because Reb Hai Gaon writes, what does Reb Hai Gaon write? So the Ramban writes that Reb Hai Gaon is writing that because he talks about that you're not allowed to write on a klaf, you're not allowed to write the name of Hashem. So Rashi wouldn't have written that you're allowed to do klaf, not about Urim veTumim in general. But so the Ramban has a whole different opinion, which has to do, the Ibn Ezra has a whole different opinion, but if you know the Ibn Ezra is very much into the zodiac and the stars, so he has a whole system about the stones, what they represent. That's his opinion. The Rambam, we're going to get back to the Shem first to understand the name of Hashem. You following? This is the shita of Rashi and its stones. This is the shita of Rashi. Mercedes? There's chairs over there. We can get through. Oh, that's long. No, Shragi, this you want to take a chair over there? Okay, this is Shita's. This is the Shita of Rashi, Shade number 4. Okay, comes along the Rambam, and the Rambam has a different. Here we already have in the page. So the Rambam's opinion is like this. The Rambam is that the Urim veTumim is in fact the actual Choshen. The Choshen is the Urim veTumim. Okay, so this is what the Rambam says. Well, it's the same thing.
Nothing inside.
There's nothing inside. Also, the Baal Sheni Urim veTumim doesn't say the Soichel. Does it Soichel? Sat El Choshen HaMishnah is Urim veTumim. El. This is the Ram, right? Also by Sheni, the stones themselves. The stones themselves is the Urim veTumim.
In which component? The stones.
Stones of Choshen, yes. The stones of Choshen. Also by Sheni Urim veTumim. Why did they do the Urim? Why did they create the Urim veTumim? Even though Urim veTumim did not work in the Baal Sheni, it was only to complete the 8 begadim. They needed the 8 begadim. One of the begadim was the Choshen, right? So the Hashem is a begadim. They it was part of the uniform, right? Even though the Choshen didn't work, the Choshen working was the Urim veTumim. It didn't work. It didn't have the Urim veTumim. Didn't have that quality. Still, they put it out. By the way, this is a long conversation, not mamish to hear, which we talked about on Shabbos a little bit about the Aron. I don't know if you remember, we talked about the Aron with the Luchas. So technically, why didn't they make in the Baal Sheni Luchas? I'm sorry about the Luchas. Why didn't they make the Aron? If they didn't have the Luchas, Lahashon Klei HaMikdash. Lahashon Klei HaMikdash should do the same thing. Their own rights, Lahashon was the big day HaMikdash. The big day Kohen Gadol to Mashlam. They did the Choshen even though it didn't work. So the second base of Mikdash, you should have made an Aron because there's a mitzvah to make the Aron. Then the stop the Aron Eidos. You should put in the Aron, the Eidos, the Torah. So why didn't you make an Aron? Is a Charai. What's the Rai from that?
It's not marked.
No, what's not Ma'akev?
It's not marked enough.
No, it must be what we were saying is that the whole mitzvah of the Aron is only there for the Luchas. Yeah, that's the word. By the way, it's a brisker Torah. The brisker Rav says it. Nasha Chacham says it. It doesn't say the way we said it. But he said lahalacha that the whole mitzvah of the Aron is only for the Luchas. When there's no Luchas, no Aron.
Tornadoes.
No, but it says in the Sat there. It says the Sat Bisham as Arnados.
It's possible the Arnados.
Yeah, no, say, but it says you should put in the look in the Arnados.
Rashi says that's why it's called that.
Right, but you put it in there. So I'm saying, in other words, it doesn't exist. The whole mitzvah of the Aron was just to cover over the Luchas. You don't have Luchas, you don't have an Aron. There's no reason to add that kli. And mipnei ma lo yishoyim behem v'shlo yishom the Ruach HaKodesh. V'chol perishim da Ruach HaKodesh. Ve'en ashkir shalom, ein shalom boy. That's what the Rambam says. Let's read the next line. Okay, so how do you actually ask this question? How do you ask the Kohen Gadol upanav lifnei Aron? So the Kohen Gadol is standing and his face is facing the Aron. V'hashoyel ma'achar, and the shoyel is standing behind him. The person that's asking the question. Panav lachor Kohen, he's looking. His face is facing the backside of the Kohen. V'omer hashoyel elem layala, and the question is asked: should I go up? Should we not go up? Should we do battle or not? Me'ein hashoyel b'koram. Not too low, not in a loud voice, but not also mahar b'liboy, not just very quietly. A person is praying to himself, davening for himself. Umiyad, Ruach HaKodesh leveshes HaKoyin. Ruach HaKodesh washes the Kohen. Umabit b'choshim, and he looks at the choshim. V'roy boy, and he sees b'mar ha'nevuah. He sees the lit choshim in a mar ha'nevuah. He sees this in a state of prophecy, right? Which means that if you're standing next to the Kohen, you would see anything. It's not like a robot all of a sudden it's just clicking out lights. It's only the Kohen Gadol who has the nevuah. He can see the lights.
He's not physically seeing.
He's seeing b'mar ha'nevuah.
So it upside down.
He's seeing b'mar ha'nevuah in the state of prophecy. It's important. In the letters that are boilet to the choshen, he sees this b'mar ha'nevuah. Okay, this is what the Rambam says.
But he sees it coming towards him. Sees the letters.
But let this come out. He's looking down and he sees. He's like, yeah, if he's looking down. No, it's
I see. Are you saying it's kind of b'mar ha'nevuah?
But let this is coming out. Yeah, he sees like the olive coming out, the base coming out. Okay, there's still not really clear. I mean, this is the Shlit Rambam, but it's not so clear what exactly happens. Because what's not clear is that he asked a question. All right, the guy asked the question. The Kohen Gadol is asking the question to the choshen. The question says, let's say, Elech Lebavel. Okay, Elech Lebavel, you have Beis, Lamed, Lamed, Aleph, Lamed, right? So you have these letters. What does he see? He sees an Aleph, Lamed. So how's that? How does he know the combination of the letters? Right? So it's a
mission. The oasis are boltus.
Boltus, right?
No, but you have to make.
But then he has to make them. He has to know the sequence. So by the way, this is machlokes. What you're learning with the mission is a machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, which Rabbi Yochanan says that they're boiletus. That means that they pierce out in his Mar Nevuah according to Rambam or according to Rashi literally, but that it's also in the Mar Nevuah according to Rashi because it's through the Shem first. But he sees a boiletus. He sees a letter popping out, and then according to Rish Lakish, they're also mitzdarfos. Mitzdarfos means actually that they're mitzdarf in the right sirufim. They come to the right combinations. So it says Bavel, it says Beis Lama, just not Beis Lama, and you know what they are. But the Beis then first comes, or something like that, and then the Lama comes. So you actually see the sequence of the letters. Okay, that's the word of mitzdarfos. But let's see what the shitta of
The Buah. Can he just get it clear?
Okay, also a question. That's also a good question. Why does he get it clear? Good. And what is clear? And what is clear anyway? Let's understand what clear is. And what does it mean to see?
What happens?
And why is it different between the Nevuah and Ruach HaKodesh? That's what we have to really. And Nevuah and Urim veTumim. There's going to be a difference because the Navi is like you say, it's clear. The Navi comes down and says exactly what the word of Hashem is. Why this game that he's here? He's in Ruach HaKodesh. He's seeing letters. It's coming. It's not coming. Why this bilbul? Why this lack of clarity? Why is it not just clear? Lo Yala. It comes to Ruach HaKodesh. It says Yala. Lo Yala. Finish. He comes. He sees the letters. Then it's Starif, and then the boltas. Like this whole process is a little kind of interesting. Obviously, there's something about it.
By Yeshayim is no Nevuah?
No. There's no Urim veTumim. No By Yeshayim. By in the beginning of By Yeshayim, there was called the Nevim Achronim, Chagis Chaim Alach, and the Nevuah, Paska Nevuah.
So
that's why it's the rise of Torah Shalom, right? Shimon Tzadik is a little Mishra gets like that, and then right away it's Torah Shalom.
double letters and let's say.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Okay, well that's another question. This is the first one. Let's learn the Rabbeinu Bachai is quoting a lot from the Ramban. So instead of learning the Ramban inside, it's just easier to read the Rabbeinu Bachai, and he adds a few little things there. It says you should put lechoshen as ha'urim as ha'tumim. You should put the known ones. It never says what these Urim veTumim are. It's like as if you're supposed to know the Urim veTumim. What Urim veTumim? And also, it wasn't said Sisa Urim veTumim. It doesn't say that they made Urim veTumim. It doesn't say later that they made them. That Urim veTumim is not a Ma'aseh Cheresh. This was not a carpenter that made this work, but it's Ma'aseh Shemayim. This is a heavenly act. Therefore, it says Yediyah, like it's known. It's a kruvim, es ha-kruvim, the kruvim. Which kruvim were we talking about in the beginning of Eden? So it must be the kruvim. Which kruvim? Hashem's kruvim, whatever that means. We don't know what that means, but at least we know it's known to the people that know. And on the deeper level. This is what the Ramban writes. This is the Rabbeinu Bachai is writing. This is also what the Ramban writes. they were actually Shem Mois Kedosh, not like Rashi writes, Shem HaMeforish, but they're actually different names of Hashem. And you look in the Baal Turim, for example, you'll see that the Baal Turim writes that it's Shem Av, the 72-letter name, but you'll see in a second what this are. Hashem is under Shnei Chalakim. There are two names. There's two names here. One is going to be Shem Mem Beis, the Shem Mem Beis, and one is Shem Ayin Beis. Are you familiar at all with this? If not, I mean, we're going to talk about this in a second. But these are the two names, and this is also brought down already. Not Shem Ma. Exactly. Shem Ma is on the B'Koyach, and Shem Av. We'll talk about this in a second. When we see the AriZal, we'll talk about it.
Like Rashi.
Not Yitkiv Shem Av. No, Rashi in Sukkah says Shem Av is not Yitkiv. Anivahu Rishiana. So who's the Vahu? Anivahu. Who's Anivahu? So Rashi said Vav Hey Vav is one of the 72 letter names of Hashem. So Rashi in Sukkah. But we'll see in a second what this is, what these names are. So he said that there are two names. Okay, so that's also, this is coming from the Ramban. That's not one of Shem Mufarish, it's two names. Urim. The first one was Urim, means that there was lit up, which is through the first name of Hashem. Hasheni mekoicham, from that koich of the second name of Hashem that this kohen was meditating on, had kavana, the leva kohen, the kohen was meditating on. So there was two names. In other words, you needed two things. First of all, you have to see the letters, and then you have to start the letters in the correct order. So for the one is called Urim, and one is called Tumim. So the first one, the letters come out, and the second one is you were able to create the proper tziruf. Okay, so just reading what the Ramban is saying, or what the tzirufim, correct.
So the Urim and Tumim are both inside the Choshen?
Inside the Choshen, no. There are actually two names of Hashem. One is the 42-letter name of Hashem. One is the 17-letter name of Hashem. They were placed in the breast, in the Choshen himself. The Kohen used to meditate on when the Urim to see the letters. For the Tumim, he used to have kavanah to be able to see the chibur, the tzir for the right oisis. Because of Yehuda Leva Kohen Tumim B'Yidiz, okay. Let's see if he says anything else. No. Okay. That's basically the ikar what he has to say. So okay, so Beruach HaKodesh Shaboy Yavi Beliboy. There's a lashon over here from Chaya. It's Beruach HaKodesh Shaboy Yavi Beliboy. So there's a Gemara. The Ruach HaKodesh Beliboy. There's like a Ruach HaKodesh in his heart. What is Ruach HaKodesh in his heart? So there's a Gemara. Everyone knows the famous Gemara about Bas. The Gemara says that Kishchar Beis Hamikdash and Nitl Nevuim and Neviim and the Menasim Chachamim, or Afal Pisha Nitl Neviim, the Chachamim still have or Shaitim, whatever, but that's the Gemara, right? The Chachamim still have Nevuah. So there's a lashon the Ramban on that Gemara says that it's a Ruach HaKodesh Shebekirbam. There's that the Chachamim have what we call as a Ruach HaKodesh Shebekirbam. There's like an inner knowing that Chacham Yisrael have. There's Nevuah, which is Pascha Nevuah. There's a type of Nevuah that comes like Milmayo Lamata, like from above to below, and completely overwhelms the person. So much overwhelms the person that the person that's going through the Nevuah falls on the floor and has like a spasm attack, like he falls down on the ground, a seizure, and the Nevuah just comes through him. Right. But there's another type, which is the Chacham, which he still has like Pascha Nevuah Chacham. What does it mean? It's a Ruach HaKodesh Shebekirbam. Nevuos Chacham Shohaya B'Derech Chacham Le'Nitna El Yodim Sa'emes Ruach HaKodesh Shebekirbam. This is a type of awareness. Yodim Sa'emes Ruach HaKodesh. We don't know yet, but something, right? The Ruach HaKodesh Shebekirbam. Something Ruach HaKodesh Shebekirbam. And this. So even though the Gemara says that Pascha Ruach HaKodesh, Shacham means Pascha Ruach HaKodesh, well, we see the Chacham always talked about this type of Ruach HaKodesh. Even the Ravid in Hilchos Lulav talks about that Kvar Hifiu Ruach HaKodesh Beis Mikdashenu, and says that the halacha is not like the Rambam. Okay, that's possible, whatever, about certain type of Lulav. Now, what did the Rambam mean? The Ravid mean that the Ruach HaKodesh. What does that mean? It means some type of like inner chacham kirbam leiv knowing. Spiritual gut feeling.
But it sounds like it's already there. It's meaning the Ruach Kodesh Shabbat that's in the
In the
it's in
Liba.
the Urim and veTumim that's going then going
Comes
to his
into the
heart,
Liba, correct?
or that it's in the coin and then it's going directly to specifically his heart.
Okay, fine. Either way, but this is Ruach HaKodesh B'Kirba, the same type of Ruach HaKodesh B'Kirba. If okay, here we have from let's go to Sefer Lukutim from the Ari. So just a few shtiklach here. We'll do them quick because they're kind of okay. So the okay, hina choshen outside the choshen v'ephod. The ephod also seems to have some type of power. We're not going to talk about the ephod's power because the ephod also had that one, right, on the shoulder plate. And there's psukim in Tanakh to talk about David HaMelech that he couldn't find the choshen. He asked the ephod. The ephod responded to it. Huh? Yeah, the ephod blade. Yeah, and there's that's something else. That's something else. It's he asked. He asked the Shaila. So there's something about the ephod has. This is the conversation, but this will go very quickly. The choshen where I live in Aaron. The choshen was placed on the heart of Aaron. So it's on the left, stafka on the heart. Ki Aaron who dugmas the Zol, because Aaron himself represents Zohar Ampin. Why is Aaron represent Zohar Ampin? Because very, very loosely, if Moshe Rabbeinu is Sheshvina de Malka, which means the shepherd or the Sheshvina is like the Sheshvina, like a chaperone. No, the chaperone of the king. And then the Shevina de Matanissa, this is the chaperone of the queen. So Moshe Rabbeinu, the Zohar says the Shevina de Malka, which means he brings down the Torah, the Seichel. Moshe is like the one that's transmitting information. He's the Navi, right? He's bringing down from above to below. And Aaron HaKohen is the opposite of Avodah. What's Aaron HaKohen? Now what's the Avodah of Aaron? To inflame the hearts of Klal Yisrael, the Shiva Kanei Amanoyer, which represents all the midas, Chesed, Gur, Tiferes, all those midas out there, right? In Parshas, so to waken them up, to bring them to the right direction, right?
To go out and
to lift them up,
down.
exactly. So right? So you have to light the menorah until Shaleves Olam Aleh, but it comes from below, which means that Aaron's posture is Dafke Mekarim is Mekarim Sabrius, right? So the Aaron is the Oivi soul. Aaron represents that, okay? In this analogy, he represents the heart, which is Zohar Ampin, which is the Midas. Just like Zohar Ampin receives the oil that comes down through the Yisoid of Ima, and it's not a mystical concept. I mean, it is, but it's not. So basically, it's very simple because Yisoid represents the end of the flow of the previous 10 spheres, right? Malchus is the container. So the Yisoid of the previous one right before Chesed is Ima. The mother gives birth to the child. The spheres are called the children, right? The son, and the Malchus is called the daughter. So Abba, the Ima is the father and mother's Chachma Bina. They give birth through Yisoid. Yisoid the Ima then comes down and impregnates, gives birth to the child, which is the 7 spheres. So these spheres are now awakened, right? Because they're connected to something higher. They're connected to Yisoid of Ima, which is Aaron HaKohen, which is connected to higher. He is this light that comes up from Yisoid Ima, is revealed in the chest of Aaron, which is exactly where Aaron placed the choshen, on his chest. So here what he's saying is that the light is so intense on the heart of Aaron that it's actually boikea. It bursts forth from his heart outward, which means Aaron was so filled with Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, and these midas that it's Aaron HaKohen himself, the oil that exists within Aaron HaKohen, is bursting forth through the revealing of the choshen, of the light of the choshen. So you understand? There's a process where in other words, you can say that the choshen is like this piece that could technically sit on a table, and the nevuah comes, the prophecy, whatever the answer comes to that thing. No, it's not like that. It actually comes through his heart. That the light that's being revealed in the choshen is being revealed through the heart of the Kohen Gadol that's wearing the choshen. It's actually his light penetrating outwards.
Is he saying Menova Orash Sama Liba is that the stones light up his heart?
No, the opposite. The other way around.
Inside out.
Inside
The
out.
heart is lighting up.
Right, the heart is
Like a
being the
filter,
heart.
like a prism.
It's a prism. Yeah, it's his heart is so lit that it lights up the choshen. It shines through the choshen. It's boikea the choshen. You understand? It's a very so we always think about it in a childish way. We think the Urim veTumim is some type like this magical oracle thing. You ask the question, beep 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 beep, dot dot dot, it comes out. So it's like some type of thing. He's saying no, it's completely wrong. It's actually coming through the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol it's boikea from the level of the Kohen Gadol into the choshen. Right? It's almost a manifestation. It's a manifestation from his thing. And then what you mentioned, the idea of the tzitz. He says that the idea of the tzitz is I think I'm saying that the tzitz will be a similar idea, right? Not the exact thing, but a similar idea because the tzitz would be side amish you can hametzach. So in other words, over there, it's the brain, but over there, it's coming through the brain. So it's also like a piercing through the metzach, through the forehead of the kohen. Let's go a little bit further down. Okay, it's a different sugya. You're right, it's a whole different sugya. But we try to skip the Urim veTumim, we didn't get to Baal Shem yet. But here, Urim veTumim, Amar b'Zohar. Zohar actually writes, Urim veTumim, veTumim, ve'Eifed, and he also brings down it's a different shemus. Urim oishel is galon shom liboy. Okay, that's what we said. Ve'Tumim kedeged hanukva. Here, okay, let's go down. I'm sorry. Go to the bottom. Urim veTumim, v'shem mav, shem membeis, v'shem av. Urim v'shem membeis, have a bereisha. Ve'Tumim v'shem av, have a begufa. And first comes shem av, then comes shem av. Okay. Let's hold for this for a second. What this means? Huh?
Ask, pray, tell me what you just said.
Okay. So there's basically these two names. The truth is, I just want to tell you something. Shem Av, you know? Shem, okay. Shem Av is actually one of the more mysterious things that we actually don't know a lot about. This is kind of interesting. Shem Av is basically like this. There's 3 psukim, the Parshas Shalach, that the Zohar says. Here's a Rabbi 8. That's 3 psukim in a row. They each one have 72 letters. So the Zohar says in Parshas Shalach that if you take the first letter, so it's Chesed Gevurah Tiferes. The first pasuk is Chesed Gevurah Tiferes. So if you take the first letter from the first pasuk, the last letter from the second pasuk, the first letter from the third pasuk, you have one name. You have the first name of Hashem. If you take the second letter from the first pasuk, the second to the last letter from the second pasuk, the second letter from the third pasuk, you have the second, and then the third. You got it? That's the third. The first, last, first. First, last, first. What is that? Chesed goes always first. Gevurah always goes backwards. Tiferes is a combination. Tiferes has more chesed, so you go first. You got it? That's the names of Hashem. These are 72 letter names of Hashem. And for example, we have this encoded throughout davening, which most people no, there's 72 names that have 3 letters in total. 72 taka names. Right. So when the Rashi writes that Anivahu Haishiyana, Rashi writes Vahu Vav Hey Vav is one of the 72 letter names of Hashem. What does these 72 letter names of Hashem actually represent? So the interesting thing is that it's a very fascinating thing and interesting. We actually don't really know all of them. We don't. There's no more clear. Unfortunately, the people today that made a business out of this, turned this into a business, said this name represents this, cards and have all those things, but it's Babamaisis because I was actually interested in knowing if there's any market for this. The only sefer, there is some things that we do, like for example,
representative.
That's a different Shem Av. One second, that's Shem Av Yud Kei Vav Kei.
So that's one.
No, the different name of Shem Av. Oh, there's Yud Kei Vav Kei. Oh, there's Yud Kei. There's a different Shem Av. These are the 72 names of Hashem. Really. That this name. For example, Shabbos Hi Melizoik. Shabbos Hi Melizoik is Mem He Shin. Rosh Hashanah is Mem He Shin. Mem He Shin is one of the 72 letters name, one of the 72 names of Hashem, and it's a name that's connected to Refuah. That's all we say. Shabbos Hi Melizoik. So if you look in like Sidurim that are more Kabbalah, you'll see sometimes some of the letters are lit up. Yeah. It's a Pei Aleph Yud, whatever. There's a lot of different names that are all lit up, and you wonder, or Pei Yud Aleph. And so you're wondering, like, why is it? So there's different, right? Also that, yeah. Chasach is actually another name of Hashem. So these names are connected. We know some of the names, and also if you look at the they have Lamed Yud, correct. There's a lot of different names that we know about, and a lot of those names that we actually do know what they actually represent, but they represent different things. There's one sefer that I found. If you found that sefer, please tell me. The only sefer that I found that actually talks about this is the sefer. It's called Cherev Peace B'Yodim. It's a very interesting sefer. It's written by the brother Klois, the Klois of Brod. I don't know if you know this Klois, but if you know a little history, you ever heard of Reb Chaim Sanzer? Not Reb Chaim Sanzer, the other Reb Chaim Sanzer, the literature of Chaim Sanzer. Okay, so there was a Klois in Brod. I don't want to get into the whole history. There was a Klois in Brod. You know what the Klois? I don't know if you know what the Klois was. You know what it used to be? No. Klois was a very serious thing. Klois, you have to go to join a Klois. I don't give you the history of this, but basically, to join a Klois, you have to go like for 7 years and learn. You have to learn 20 hours a day. You're only allowed to go home for Shabbos, but you got a stipend. It was like a shikol, like a cut. It was like the product, like an early type of coil, but they only took the top people. Also, people really had to learn. And if you didn't show up for 20 hours a day, mamish 20 hours a day, for like 7 years, it was a commitment for 7 years. You were thrown out, and it was considered like the Klois and Brod was considered like a very, very, very high level of Klois. The Noda B'Yehuda is a Talmud is a friend of Chaim Sanzer, who's one of the author of the Sefer, from that group of people. That's why you ever heard that the Baal Shem.Rav knew the Noda B'Yehuda. You ever heard this story? I never heard this before. Okay, so you don't know because the Noda B'Yehuda wrote things about Shem Yichud. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, I heard it.
Okay, so Shigayas, but the Noda B'Yehuda knew the Baal Shem because Baal Shem used to hang out in the Brod of Klois. They actually knew each other. Some were Chaim Sanzer and certain ones. But he's not really from Prague. He's the Rav in Prague later on. He's from Prague. He's from Poland, from Ukraine. He became the Rav in Prague because he was the big genius that came out of the brother Klois. Some of them became big famous Rabbanim. Some of them just end up staying there their whole life. But they're also Kabbalah. They learn Kabbalah. This sefer, the Cherev Peace B'Yodim, is a sefer on the Shem Mem Beis, the Shem Ayin Beis. It's not the sefer of these names. And he goes the Shem. It has to do also with Shema. If you look at Shema, the Hafta has 42 letters, 42 words, and then so the Hafta Shem has 42. That's Shema. And then from V'Hoyim Shema you do 72 letters, and you get sort of to the middle. That's going to be the Shem of this Shem Mem Beis Bekitzer is connected with Anu B'Koach. Okay, it's also there are mock rights. It's connected with the first 42 letters of Bereshis Bar Lukim. If you do the first 42 letters of Bereshis, if you do that with different types of interchangeable, different makrios and Nikon of different changing letters, you'll get also these 42 aces. It's connected to Anu B'Koach. It's also connected actually to the name of Hashem because Yud Kei Vav Kei is 4 letters, but if you spell Yud Kei Vav Kei out, Yud Vav Dal, Hey Yud Aleph, etc., you get 10. And if you do Yud Kei Vav Kei in the 10 letters, you spell it fully out, you get 28. Koyach. That's why you have to do Kaddish B'chol Koiche. If you do B'chol Koiche, it's 28. 28 plus 10 plus 2 is 42. Every time in davening, when there's a movement between one world and the next, you say Anu B'Koach. If you realize, if there's like a, let's say from Karbonis, you're transitioning into davening, you say Anu B'Koach. So Anu B'Koach, that 42 is connected to 42 Masois. The 42 Masois that Baal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, those are connected. So whenever there's a transitional state, it's connected to Anu B'Koach. Because Anu B'Koach actually has 42 letters, right? Anu B'Koach goes with 42 words. 42 letters, I'm sorry. Yeah, Anu B'Koach. That's where they have that.
So it's not that if I can ask you now.
Yeah.
Let's try that this Urim that have a Pirush on it say that you're supposed to say the 2 words together.
Oh, so that's a big machlokes Rishonim.
But the Rosh Hashanah is the end.
Correct. Okay, that has to do with the Malachim because it's 2, 2, 2. Malachim are two wings on the head, 2 wings on the feet, 2 wings on things. And according to Baigon, that's the way you're supposed to do Mechavan them.
3.
Abba got 2.
Yeah. All the Urim say 2, but
2. That's what you have to Mechavan them. And they actually mean something. No, even though that, no, Kufresh. You do the same thing. But they also, Abaga, Yakats, whatever, they actually mean something. They're actually not just random things. It's not like, they actually mean, if you really want to know what they mean, very simply, open up a book called Inner Worlds of Prayer. And at the end, there's a whole thing about Olam Koyach. It explains exactly what the Mechavan is, what you do, what the thing, how you do it. And it comes from Hagon. What the Kavan is, like how you do with two letters, what they actually mean. The first day is Sunday, second day is Monday, second day is Tuesday. Same structure. So that represents a transition to get to Shabbos. That's why you finish. After you say the name of Hashem, then it's Shabbos. That's not Shlama.
It's
Well,
one
that-
you say that every day.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
Stern had it also before every.
I once read somewhere. This is a fascinating. There's like an intellectual biography of Rashid Popovich, Reuven Grozovsky. That's what it says there. And this is a literature, straight. This is a Rashid Popovich. He says in the thing they saw once that before he went into Shiur he was mumbling something, and they asked him what are you mumbling. He says every time he goes into a Shiur, he's mechavan that he's doing it l'kavana for his father that passed away. His father passed away, so he's doing it with the Ishmael, and he says Anam B'koyach before the Shiur. Because it's like it's a new, he's going into Nuch Kivun, there he's learning, now he's teaching, so he wants to go to Nuch Kivun, he says Anam B'koyach. So this is that's what I said, it's not a thing. So this is Anam B'koyach is this letter, is a 42, which is the one transition, and then the Shem Ayin Beis is names that are mitzturaf, are combined, right? You take the first letter, the first word of the first pasuk, the last letter of the second pasuk, the third letter, the first one is one name. You understand what you're actually doing is a tziruf. You understand this? The thing, the name itself represents a tziruf of three different things. Samach Laman Aleph is in Tolbus brings on a lot of that. Samach Laman Aleph is also a name that breaks to Samach Mem. This, yeah. So this is the name. So we have these two names: the Urim name and the Tumim name. So the Urim name, like, sort of represents like the thing that is lit up, like it's like and the Tumim name allows for the correct siruf of that thing. Okay, so that these are going to back to these two names. God, there's another sefer. This is a sefer by the Kazos Magid. There you saw, which also only the 42 letter name. He explains Arichas Gedola. If you're interested, but that's more benimsa. The 42 is more benimsa. 72. Okay. Yes, correct. Your father?
As much as possible.
Okay, exactly. You have to get as much as
Yeah, we
possible.
have to
This
say
is-
Anam B'koyach.
Okay, weiter. Let's go to another shtickle. This is from the girl. So the girl has a whole thing about the Urim veTumim, but this shtickle on top. There's the Urim, which represents the Oyer of Yom HaRishon, which represents the clarity, right? The light. That's Oyer HaRishon. The Tumim name is connected to the one that's Mitzaref, which is the Ramban, the Torah Aruch. They all say the same idea, and that's according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that the Oises were only Mitzarefes. I'm sorry, the Oises were not boilet, they were Mitzaref. So then you have the Mitzarefes. According to the first opinion, they only were boilet, right? They only shined out. How did the Kohen know what to make the sequence of the letters? So Lamando Amar Boltois Hoy Mitzarefes Baruch Shal Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol was Mitzarefet.
Deciphered it.
He deciphered it. Kamoy Torah Shabbat Peh. This is very chashuv words over here. He did it as if Kilo was Torah Shabbat Peh. He was a Medarashit. Okay. Now comes along the Baal Shem and says like this. This is a shtickle Baal Shem, and the Oisius are from the Dego, and he writes Oisius that you have to mamish sit and contemplate for like at least a year to understand why did the Dego has to say such words. But Soid Ombo. God, the Dego also writes Urim veTumim is out of the year. That Urim is Lashon Yira, Tumim is Lashon Achad, Achad Tetzaveh. This is another. That's not from the Zayin, not from the Moshe. This is a great secret and an opening to a great gate, a very deep secret and a great gate. This the Degel is really saying this is something very powerful. Then he says, I'm going to reveal a little bit what the secret is. I'm also going to conceal it. And if you have enough seichel, you're going to understand what I'm saying. And if not, you're just going to think, okay, you're just going to read this and you're not going to understand anything. Now, what does he say? It's no, the Urim veTumim only had 22 letters. B'doichik. What does it mean b'doichik? We know, for example, the letter Ches, Tes, Kuf, Tzadik, right? We had the Shemus of the Shvatim in the Urim, right? Okay, we have all the Shvatim. You don't have a Ches, you don't have a Tes, you don't have a Kuf, you don't have a Tzadik. That's why it says Yaakov Avinu. You know the story. When Yaakov Avinu was he was not revealed the Ketz, Kuf Tzadik, because he looked at the oasis of his kids and he says no Kuf Tzadik. So they said, okay, we also don't have Chet. We don't have Ches Tes. Okay, so we're even. You can't say you can't get the Ketz. So those are the 4 letters you actually don't have. You don't have in the oasis of the Shvatim. Name of the Shvatim. So what did Chazal say? Chazal say that in addition to that, there was also it said Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Shifte Yeshurim, or Shifte. I don't say Shifte. It was also added. Shifte gives it a test, and Yitzchak and Yaakov. Yitzchak gives it the most. Yitzchak gives a chutz, ches, tzadik, and kuf. Right. So Yitzchak gives it 3 letters. Yaakov also gives it a kuf, and then Avram doesn't add anything really technically, and maybe a shlasman, but it's not so interesting. And Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shifte Yeshur, and Shifte kuf. That's why you have this thing. So in other words, you only have 1 ches. You only have 1 tes. You only have 1 kuf, 2 kufs, 1 tzadik. So it's very limited, the Oisius. Now the question is, what if they ask a question that it needs an answer with 3 or 4 letters? Come on. Ha'elech lebavo. Should we go up to Bavel? Lamed, Beis, Lamed. You have a problem. You have 2 Lameds, 2 bases. What was the answer? So again, the question of the Baal Shem is not the question that the Ramban is answering. Ramban is answering the question is, how did he know how to combine the letters, right? So he says that the letters were shown. That was the first Mechavan, the first name allowed him to see the letters. The second name allowed him to do the tziruf of the letters. That's something that's the question that the Rishonim asked. The Degel is asking Baal Shem, there's not enough letters. You still don't have tzaref letters. So let's say it was with tzaref. What's with tzaref? It's had to say bavel. You need 2 bases. There's no 2 bases. What did it do? So you know that the tziruf comes out. Let's say there's no 2 bases. It says elach leval, right? And what does it mean? You're missing that. So Hechoy Yachuv is that Yesh was soy damuk. Baal Shem said that this is a soy damuk. The N is chalki, and Baal Shem said, I'll also give a little on this here. If the Baal Shem says it's a soy damuk, we have to shtel zich up and understand what the soy damuk is. You understand? We can't just read this and say okay. Because if you read the Torah, we're going to read it very quickly. You're going to see like okay, so what? Let's read very quickly. What does it mean that there was more letters? Every letter has 22 letters. What does that mean? Take the Aleph, you have Aleph Lamed Pei. Take the Lamed Aleph Lamed Pei, you have Aleph Lamed Pei, Lamed Mem Dalet, Pei Yud Aleph, Aleph Lamed Pei. You understand? Beis Yud Tov, Beis is Beis Yud Tov, Yud is Yud Vav Dalet, Tov is Tov Vav Pei. You understand? You keep on getting multiple letters. Now the truth is,
So why call Beis when I call Rock?
Chabez Oisis, that's Chabez Oisis. All the Oisis, because if you go long enough, you get there. The truth is that technically it doesn't work. Technically, it doesn't work. For example, you can go Aleph 1,000 times, you're never going to get to Ches or Tes or to Kuf or Tzadik. Never. If you do that to Aleph, the Beis, the Gimel, the Dalet, the Hey, you're never going to get there because all those letters don't have Ches or Kuf. Sound them: Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey.
Well,
right?
Tzadik, maybe Tzadik. If you get to a Tzadik.
But you have to get the Tzadik. How do you get that Tzadik? You can't. You understand? It actually doesn't. It doesn't work technically. I don't know. That's why I want to see. Exactly. You're just going to have Aleph. You can have all the letters that with Aleph Lamed Pei. It's just going to go around and around. Anyways, you're not going to get to actually all the letters. You're not getting actually. Some letters are still going to be singular. That's one problem. That's first of all. That's like a technical problem. I don't know what this shows out. This is a technical problem because Shem was talking about it on a super high level. And you want to get technical? Okay, fine. Okay, you can get technical. But I think this. Okay. And mem, besides mem, because mem is mem, so you don't really have, you're not getting anything. The Kohen that was Mislavish Ruach HaKodesh, I guess the person that was asking the question, the Kohen Gadol, Ach Shetziva Hashem Shechav Moises in the Urim veTumim, by Meir Moises in the Luim Shalab. And because the Meluim were also shining, he got the answer. In other words, okay, what does Avnei Meluyim mean? The Pasha Pshat in Avnei Meluyim, Rashi writes, is that they filled up the boxes, right? That's what Rashi writes. They carved it up and filled it in the box. It's molly, it's filled into the box. So the Baal Shem said that Meluyim means the milu of the Oasis. the million of the oasis, the filling of the oasis, which means they asked the question, Bavel, Beis Lamed. So in the Beis, let's say, of Avram lit up, but also the Beis Yud Taf, and the Yud Taf Beis, and all the letters within that, you finally got to another Beis, and he was able to see the other Beis that was in the Beis. And you don't see on the letters, because if you look in the Choshen itself, it actually has, the Rebbeinu Chaim makes a Choshen, there's actually 72 letters, 72 actual letters on the Choshen. Because if you have the 50 letters of the Shvatim, and because that's on the you have the 50 letters, and you have Shiftei Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, sure you get the 72. Has to do the 72 hours of the 12 times 6 is 72, has to do with the 6 days of the week. Again, also transition things. Pull back a second. If the Kohen Gadol was just seeing the middle of the middle, what does it actually mean? So let's just say the pshat of this Torah. Very simple. If you read this Torah, and if the Degel didn't write that it's a soid amok ve'gala ve'chasa, what would you think the Torah means? Simply, if you read it, you would say, what is the Torah saying? It's very simple. When you see something and doesn't have enough letters, so Baal Shem revealed that Av Nemiluya means the filling letters. That means not only the letters that were there, but the letters that are potentially in there in a hidden way, and the Kohen Gadol was able to see those letters. So I'm asking you, is that a big Torah? Is that something earth-shattering? That you have to say that it's a Soid Amuk V'Gala V'Chasa on such a Torah? I'm asking you, do you think it's such a Torah? If you read the Pshat,
only if the Tumim part needed a lot more chachma now.
Okay, the Tumim, yeah, agreed.
That was now a whole other level.
Okay, so the Tumim needs a little more. So not only is it ciphering, but he's seeing it. But he's seeing it. Is he seeing it? Is he talking seeing it? What is actually happening here with this Kohen Gadol? In order to say that there's some type of tremendous soid that's being revealed, that the Baal Shem is revealing in this thing. To say that the other letters, and not only were the letters on the Aron, on the Choshen, those exact letters were lit up, but also the letters that in the middle of the letters, you don't have to be the Baal Shem to say that. And certainly you don't have to say the Gal V'Chasa. Do you understand what the problem is?
Could it be like the Lubavitcher would always would sometimes circle the letters of the person's own question?
So therefore,
meaning like the answer is there.
Okay, this is a good word. Let's go to another Torah, and through that I think we're able to understand this, because it has to do with Sirif Oisius. This is like something. Remember what we were saying. This is a gather. This is the level of a Ruach HaKodesh, right? This is a form of Ruach HaKodesh. It's not Nevuah, it's a Ruach HaKodesh. Like it's a lower level than Nevuah, but it's a type of Ruach HaKodesh. It's Belibo. That's what the AriZal is talking about. It's Beleva Aaron. It's something, it's Ruach HaKodesh Bekirbam. It's some type of inner knowing that's happening. And it's becoming revealed sort of from above, from below, but it becomes an absolute. Because Shema Shlinu says that Tumah means that whatever is said, Eilech, it's guaranteed. Somehow the Kohen, through the tziruf, seeing it and then voicing it and saying, yeah, Eilech, Lo Eilech, becomes the reality and it's unchangeable. Okay, that's something about the Kohen doing this in this state of Dveikus. Ruach HaKodesh, because you only see Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, you understand? There's something here about the Kohen in the state of Ruach HaKodesh. Seeing this type of tziruf creates this type of reality, and therefore it's the reality that it has to be. So there's a Torah like this. It's a big Torah. The Torah Baal Shem cuts a lot in many different places. But we'll read it over here in Yisrach Levis from the Gemara Nai. And we also talked about Oisius. Let's read what he has to say. Oisius are called Avonim. Right? The Sefer Yitzir says they're called the stones of creation. Because through that the world is created. Right? Are called the builders of creation. Because they're creating the world. Listen to the words. The letters that they speak, they create worlds. How does a tzaddik create worlds? This goes back to what Chazal say, that Yudea B'tzalel L'tzarv Mesa'oisis. That why was B'tzalel chosen? Because it was able to L'tzarv Mesa'oisis. That what happens is a day since the tzaddik, the person, the higher person that's living a higher existence, is dovik in the oil of the oisius. And what's the oisius? The oisius are this we just said is the building blocks of creation. So what does it mean that a person is dovik in the oil? He's dovik in the deeper part of the creator, in the oil of the creation. There's the kli of the creation. This is the table, the chair, the physical space, and then there's someone that's dovik in the oil of the oisius. When a tzaddik is dovik in the oil of the oisius, the person is dovik in the oil of the oisius. Therefore, when a person comes to some type of hardship, yedabik is shemedabik his own internal divine spark, his own internal divine to be dabik to the oisius, but not to the oisius. Lepnimius oil sheshayf b'soicha, to the pnimius of the oil in the oisius. And then when a person is misdabik, when therefore when a person davens and learns and then mispal on that, he actually lifts himself above and he actually transforms the reality and the tsar goes away. What is the Baal Shem saying? What is Baal Shem saying? Baal Shem is saying is that a tzaddik that's davik in the oil, a person that's davik in the oil, when a person is davik into the source of the oasis is like the form of creation, right? This table is called a shulchan because it's a sirah for shin lamed ches nun, right? So the spiritual energy that gives rise to this table is a shim lamed ches. That's the oasis akdoshus that create. That's the spiritual DNA of the oasis. But the table is a table, and I can't change the table into a chair, or I can't make the table disappear. Why? Because I'm seeing the form of the oasis. I'm seeing the shulchan. If I connect myself with the table itself, certainly you can't get through the table. Even if I connect myself with the oasis of the table, I recognize that it's not matter; it's energy. Okay, but energy is another form of matter. I'm still connected to the form of the energy in that form of this particular matter. And I can change the table into becoming a chair. But if I'm davik into the oil that creates the shulchan, the oil that gives rise to the ability for the shin lamed ches nun, which gives rise to the actual physical table, right? So then I'm davik into the oil. So the oil now says tsar. I'm davik in the oil and now should say ratzah. That's the way the Baal Shem changes it. It should be Hashem's desire should be revealed here. So now, if I change the molecules, the spiritual DNA of this object, because I'm davik in the oil, now it's a new DNA, a new energy, a new combination arises. The new combination gives a rise not the table to a chair. You following? So the process is that through dveikus, this is why the Baal Shem talks about tefillah. That's adam levakish min oisis. The person that's the mevakish oisis. What's the mevakish oisis? You have to ask from the oil that's showing in the oasis, from the light that's in the oasis, because when a person is double, the actual process of davening is actually the response. When you say you're not asking Hashem, please bring me healing. If you could do that also as well, but if you're talking davening with a higher level of faith, you say it's happening right now. Hashem is a roif v'choyle. How is Hashem a roif v'choyle? Because you just said it. And who are you? You said Ruach HaKodesh. We said with Vegas. You're following? Yeah, there's the same there. But what you're doing is if you're davik into the oil, you become the instrument through which the Varasham Shemayim Nasu. That's not Ruach HaKodesh. Vegas is Ruach HaKodesh. That's Vegas is Ruach HaKodesh. Vegas is Ruach HaKodesh. Now it doesn't mean you're going to know the future, but the concept of Ruach HaKodesh means you're connected to the Ruach. You're connected to there's the nefesh of the davar, which is like the more physical thing, and then you can be connected to the ruach of it. The ruach is the spirit, or in the way the Tikkun Zohar says, it's the highest. You're connected to the highest. When the Tikkun Zohar talks about the nefesh and the ruach, it says it's between the oisis and the nekudas. Right. So the oisis themselves are the building blocks, and the ruach is the spirit that enlivens, because you have a beis gimel. It says beis gimel, and it doesn't have the nekudas. You know, it's not. But the nekudas give it chayes. So that's the ruach. That's the wind that gives it the wind. That's the ruach. That's the wind that's aligning it. So if I'm davik into the ruach and then I speak it into the nefesh, I'm actually creating it. If we understand this, we can understand now what the Baal Shem is megala on the Torah of Urim veTumim. Taking everything that we learned before from the Ramban, and from Rabbeinu B'chaim, from the Gram, from the Zohar, from the Ari HaKadosh, all the things that we just learned now, that it's Torah Sheba'al Peh. Everything what we're saying now is that what is actually the process of Torah Sheba'al Peh? What's asking in general to the process of Torah Sheba'al Peh? The Torah Sheba'al Peh, there's a lashon with the Chazon Ish in one of his letters. He writes, because it's very nice. You write very nicely. It's a together of mishikin. It's like a kiss between the seichel of the person that's learning and the seichel apoel and the active intelligence. There's like some type of interchange, like a very subtle. There's a separation in the kiss. There's a separation in the state of the shikin, but it's almost like these two things are merging together. Like the fluids are moving together. There's some type of yichud where these two things are actually in not only in contact with each other, but they're somehow becoming immersed with each other. One is losing itself within the other. So Torah Shabbat represents nevuah. Nevuah means it's coming down, and we're just recipients. We're not participating in this process. It just shows up. What's a Torah Shabbat element? Torah Shabbat element is it's through your seichel, through your intelligence. But what's your intelligence? Not that you're thinking with your government. You're thinking in a level you're connecting yourself with the intelligence of the Bora. Let's understand what this means in terms of the tzurufim. How this understands like this. The Kohen Gadol. So the Kohen Gadol represents this person that's in a state of Ruach HaKodesh, because it doesn't work if you don't have Ruach HaKodesh, right? So in the state of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Kohen Gadol is like this. There are certain people in this world. Let's try to pull it away from the Choshen for a second. Think about this. There's certain people in the world that can see the Urim, but not see the veTumim. What does that mean? The Urim means you can see there's an oir, but you don't know how this oir is mitzaref to another oir. Let me give you a very, very pulled down example. I know that I should be doing this in my life. This thing I know is very real for me. This is something I should really pursue. I should really do this thing. I just don't know how this thing is interconnected with everything else in my life. I know I should be sitting and learn. I don't know, whatever. Use your imagination. It's something I'm telling you. Clearly, I feel in my deepest level of my neshama that this is something that's part of my tafkid, part of my tikkun, part of the reason why I'm in this world is to do this thing. I just don't understand how this thing is interrelated with the other 1,000 things I need to be. I need a father, a son, a child. I don't get the whole picture, right? So there's sometimes when the light of the Urim, we're pulling it out from the Urim a second, and we'll say that the light of the Urim, the light of the Choshen, the light that's being revealed to us, is sometimes in one particular thing. It's oir. There's an oir here. I see there's an oir here. I see there's an oir here. I know I can chop a little oir here. I can chop a little oir here. I just don't know how I'm a star of the oirs. How do I build a whole structure of these oirs? Understand? To see that, I have to be able to see something that most people can't see. Because if you look at the Choshen, you're just seeing letters. What's the chush of the Kohen Gadol? The Kohen Gadol was able to see the tzarufim of the oirs. He was able to see the maluyim. He's able to see 10 times deeper than when a normal person looks. And because he was able to see 10 times deeper than the normal person looks, he was able to actually see all the types of tzirufim that were able to tell him a clear statement that says, Eilech lebavel, lo eilech lebavel. So he is the person that is able to see the tziruf. And when he sees the tziruf, who's seeing the tziruf? He's seeing the tziruf that's becoming revealed to him through HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But he has to be the person that's seeing the tziruf. Because another person, if you're not in touch with that tziruf, you're not going to see the tziruf. You're going to look at the Choshen. Even if you say in the most simple level that the Choshen actually lit up, that every person can see, you're still not going to have an answer. Because you're not going to have the tziruf. You're not going to have the maluyim. You're just going to see letters. Right?
The shuttle was behind it.
Let's say you turn around and you didn't see. It's still not going to help, right? Nothing's going to help because you're not going to see the tziruf. You're not going to see what can be seen. You're not going to see the maluyim. You're not going to see that thing. You're not going to see that tziruf. You have to be a person that has the Ruach HaKodesh. So in other words, there's some type of intermingling between these two that are having this encounter. Hashem is revealing to the Kohen Gadol the oir, say here's oir, here's oir, here's oir. And the Kohen Gadol, because he's the person, he's a worked out person, he has again a dvekus into the oir, he's able to see the tziruf of the oir. He's able to see how that combines into an actual story. And then when he says Eilech, it's absolute. It's absolute. Why does he say Eilech? It's absolute? Because when he creates, because let's pull this back a second. If you say that other than the b'chol shah, right? If you said the Gemara says that person is a machlekes if a person did the Rosh Hashanah or other than the b'chol shah. So the Gemara asks, "Amam etzli nahachi." Why do we daven today? Because we paskin according to the opinion other than b'chol shah, b'chol yom. That's what we daven today. But we actually Rosh Hashanah be Shani Kasevim. We say that everything actually happens in Rosh Hashanah. So what's pshat? Does everything happen in Rosh Hashanah or everything happens every day? What's the teretz? What's the teretz? The what?
Even if there was a desire, you could still
That's something else. That's something else. But what's the teretz of Pneumius? That the Rabbi Shab writes that in other words, there's a download, so to speak, into this reservoir of potential that comes down into this tank, so to speak, and that is revealed in Rosh Hashanah. All the parnasa you have to have, besides it's also Shabbos Yom Tov and whatever, everything comes down, and then every day there's like a funnel. You open up the funnel, you receive. You open the funnel, you receive. But you receive everything in Rosh Hashanah. But everything in Rosh Hashanah like is downloaded into a spiritual realm, but then it's not materialized into the physical realm. Why was it not materialized? Because it didn't come down into the prat, right? That's why you can have something that's you got tucked in the parnasa, but you didn't open up that valve on that day. Therefore, you didn't receive it on that day. You follow? That's the download of the klal into the prat. But when the Kohen Gadol actually says the words Eilech, it's real. He just manifested in the physical level. There's no way back. He said that's together the Kohen. The Kohen Gadol is actually a person that's lamata. He's not l'mayla. He's a person that's living in this world. He's not a person that's a transcendent being that's like a malach. He's a person in this world, and he said go. When he said the word Eilech, he just created the word Eilech through the koyach of Ein Sofius, the koyach of Oy that he was connected with Oy, and that becomes an absolute. You can't change that because that was just a gilui that was happening just now in this physical realm. You follow? This is what happens. This is what the Urim veTumim is. Urim veTumim is like this strange interface place where it's pasku anavua, or at least some level of will give you pasku, but still the ruach hakodesh is not pasuk, and therefore you can have the Urim veTumim, and you can create. And because when you're attached, you can create. When you're really dovuk, you can actually create. Let's go one last step. The last step is what the Baal Shem writes is that ruach hakodesh is available very easily. So you shouldn't be able to read this and say, okay, so what does that have to do with me? And it's very disheartening. Comes along the Baal Shem and says a very important phrase. There's a lot to talk about this guy. We'll just go through very quickly. The Baal Shem writes like this. It starts what I'm in Kes Hashem. Memzai. Pamela, Disha Shem Matzi Kuru Basic Karev, Omer the same as Zal, Zekoyel says you make shuva. Pam never got Shem as a Val Gach Matzi Kiddushanu. So give like a trade metal called Love. So one time it says that Hashem diction be carved, that only Hashem is carved at certain times of the year, but not always. And other times it says always Hashem. Hashem is always close. You know, Yom is Malagolos who benekel liyas nena betfila lahasig rocha kodesh. This is not my. It's very easy that your tefillah should be answered to have ruach hakodesh, and that's part of the same thing, right? Do you understand? Because if you have ruach hakodesh, your tefillah is nena. Tzaddik goes, but the tzaddik is the ruach hakodesh. The one person that's vacant. Yes, and tzaddik goes. Why? K'mashal melech. Tisha beis malchusay. If the melech is the king is in his home, it's impossible to get to him. So this guy will call Misharetz. I feel like crash. I'm sorry. When he's a bederach, when he's in his path, any person can get to him. The same goes to the next. When a person is mechashev, person thinks. Therefore, right away, immediately, the Hashem is present to him. He's right there. This is the word that it's very benekel. It's very benekel because the king is bederach. Like the Alter writes in Melech Masada, the same mashal. The king's bederach. The king is bederach. Everyone can have access to him. You're not going to get access to the king. This is a mashal that the Alter brings down. Ron Shishtan brings down Shem Alter in the beginning of one of his storms. That the king, you're not going to get the king in his full glory because he's bederach. You're not going to get him with all the pomp and fear and all the fancy things and music. You're not going to have the same experience like Yecheskel and Avi. You're still going to get the king. But if you really want the king, you're not interested in the trappings. You can have Vekas on the highest madriga because it's present. The king is not maybe dressed in his fancy clothes. Maybe he's hunting, but he's accessible. So let's think about this like this, and simple ICs. Besides that, the fact it's benekel that a person that should have ruach hakodesh, that's something to think about, and especially if you have typhus, you should make sure that that's the second part of the Torah that makes sure that you keep your head straight on because you think about the Eibushan and he's right there, and it's right away present. Is that how do we work on this? Okay, so we finish this whole Torah. So what are Menegelian and how do we work on this? What's the tools to be able to start seeing the tzurufim? So it works like this. I would say like this. Just like I think we talked about this once, that the Shitz Rambam is that there's Hashgacha Klaus, right? And Hashgacha Pratis is only for Ben Adam. Remember we talked about this? This is the Shittas Rambam. Now the Baal Shem writes, no, that the Hashgacha Pratis in every single prat in creation. Using the Baal Shem using the Rambam Shitta just as a lens to understand something. Imagine I don't have a good marshal. Let's imagine this. Let's say there's a light, there's a beam. Let's say you're shining a flashlight. Okay, you're shining the flashlight, and you're shining a flashlight. Let's say there's a gem on the floor. Okay, you're standing up and you shine the flashlight, and it's dark outside, and you're shining straight in the flashlight. So the light of the flashlight, okay, that the center of that light, that ray of light, is directed from the person that's holding the flashlight to the gem on the floor. So anything that's in that thing is intentional. Now the light also kicks off light everywhere else. So if you look around, you actually see other things. Okay, we'll give that a mashal between something that's called a hashpa b'derech panim al panim and hashpa b'derech acharayim. That hashpa b'derech in a way of panim al panim means it's part of the intention. The intention of shining this light is to get to that place. It happens to be that when it's getting to that place, you can also see other things in the round. Now imagine Kaviyachol, the Eibusher is the source of the light. Okay, and there's a kivun of creation, and there's a kivun also of your life. There's a certain intention of this that your life has to lead. Okay, when you're aligned with the kavana of your creation, then you're getting the hashpa directly. You can also move to the different directions, so you'll have less hashgacha pratis in your life, so to speak. Right? Why do you have less hashgacha pratis? Because these are things that are accidental, that are just not part of the process. I'm trying to get from here to here, but while I'm walking from here to here, I'm also kicking up sand. So if you're involved in kicking up sand, you're also getting the oil from the original light, because that's what's coming through, right? But you're not involved with the intention of that, because the intention is to get from point A to point Z. You're following? And if you live it, so when a person, the more, it's like a sliding scale, the more a person lives with the awareness of hashgacha pratis, the more hashgacha pratis they have. The more a person lives to become aware of the tzirufim that are happening in their life. What is the tziruf? Tzirufim is really hashgacha, right? If the more a person recognizes, stops every day to think about what were the hashgachas that happen in my life today, which means the more you become aligned into the kavana, the more hashgacha you have. The more hashgacha you have, the more tzirufim you have. It's almost like a catch-22, because you think that you have to get to that place of dveikus, and then you're going to start seeing the hashgacha to able to see all the tzirufim, the correct tzirufim, how this is aligned with that, and that's aligned with that. Start the other way around. Say, actually, I see this is the light. This is a certain, I get it. I just don't understand how the oil is here. Think about it, how the oil connects to something. Think about the hashgacha, the direction that your life is taking, that the Eibush is putting you in this situation, of this marriage, this family, this people, these children. What is part of this whole big puzzle? The more you start recognizing in the process of the tzirufim in your life, the more actually the tzirufim become revealed to you. So the more you understand the hashgacha, the more hashgacha actually becomes revealed. There's a Moedik Torah. Everyone knows the famous Torah from the Baal Shem. That's a koyers and Megillah Lafreya lo yatsa. You know what the Torah of the Baal Shem is? A koyers and Lafreya. If you read the Megillah Lafreya as if it happened yesterday, lo yatsa, you didn't fulfill the obligation. There's a Torah from the Sfutzer. He writes an Oyar Torah like this: a koyers and Megillah Lafreya, someone that reads the Megillah backwards, not that it happened in the past. Backwards lo yatsa. What does backwards mean? So there's a famous line that says, "Man lives forward and stands backward." Right? Which means you live your life, then you say, "Oh, now I understand what happened when I was 20. I did, okay, it makes sense. Okay, because I met this person. Okay, that's why now I understand why I got this job. I met this person. I married this. Okay, I get old." But you're living actually forward and only understanding your life backward. Right? This is the Kierkegaard, but whatever. That's the understanding of you're retroactively understanding. So if you read the Megillah only, in other words, when you finish the Megillah, if you do 20/20 hindsight, if you read the Megillah and you finish, then you say, so that's why Haman was killed, and that's why Hashverosh and Vashti. Then you say, Lo yatsa. You can't do that. You have to read the B'shas Maisa. And you have to feel the story right there. The Kali Saul is in a big problem. I get it. It's Kavana. It's thank Hashem. It's a big tzara. This is exactly, I got it. It's Hashgacha. If you read the Lamafrei, everyone can read the Lamafrei. Everyone can read the Megillah and look back and say, "Oh, so he killed Vashti. So then, because Esther should rise, then he became love with his wife. So he listens to his wife. He goes home. Okay, we got the whole story." No, lo yatsa. You can't do that. That's just living forward, understanding backwards. To really live with Hashgacha is the recognition that b'shas Maisa, I recognize, okay, whatever the situation is, this is what Hashem wants me to be in. And if you're not going, then you're Yaitse. That's the same word. The same word of the Ashkacha of Tzufim. This is the oil of the Baal Shem. He's saying you can't figure it out. Start. You're Benekel, you can get Ruach HaKodesh. You can have all these legs. You can say, okay, this is reserved for the Kohen Gadol, or it's Amigdash, or veTumim. It's not Shayach. It's not. We have no connection to this. We do have a connection to it because we know about it. It just maybe we don't have it on the highest level, lowest level, but we have that level. What is the level that we have to understand? And this is why there's a Megala V'Chassid. This is why the Degel say Megala V'Chassid. Megala V'Chassid is because I'm telling you something very, very powerful. Because I'm saying it's all in your hands. If I tell you a Torah that they once lived the Kohen Gadol 1,000 years ago, this is what he did it. So he did it. So you're revealing a technique that exists 1,000 years ago. I'm telling you, no, this is you. I'm going to reveal something that you can do right now. You can do right now. If you don't take the Yirak, you don't see now the Avnim Elohim. You only see maybe maybe you don't even see the Urim. But if you look deep enough and you're able to see the super, you're going to create it. The more you're going to believe in it, the more you're connected to it, the more you're going to see it, the more you can connect to the Or, your words are going to actually be able to create reality. You want to know if your words are going to create reality? It depends on the dvekas you have. But if you live taka with really dvekas, Eilech L'Bavel, I don't know, ask yourself. Say, Eilech L'Bavel, I'll be Eilech L'Bavel. You're following? And that's the Gevaldik, that's the Torah Shalpeh. And this is the side of the Urim veTumim.